Guten Tag and welcome to PA Dutch 101. This is video 27 in our series and we'll be covering the grammar topic of separable prefix verbs. There's not one term in Pennsylvania Dutch for that, so I've used the phrase verbs die net samen blijven, which would translate into verbs that don't stay together, and as you'll quickly see, that is the case. Alright. So, separable prefix verbs. Now, of course, in previous videos we covered what verbs are, so these are just a subcategory of verbs found within the dialect. One thing we have to remember is that some verbs in Pennsylvania Dutch can be combined with prefixes, and when that happens, it can change the meaning of the original verb. Now remember, a prefix is something that goes on the front. Prefix, not a suffix, which will go on the end. Prefix on the front. And this can change their meaning. For example, if we take the verb komme, to come, it's a regular verb. We put the prefix on it, in this case, two A's, komme. We now have a new verb. And not only a new verb, a new meaning as well. Komme is to arrive. So without the prefix komme, to come, with a prefix changes the meaning. Komme, to arrive. Now, when we're talking about the present tense, the prefix, and here's the rule, will separate from the verb and move to the end of the sentence or question. I always like to tell people, when you're working with these, you split it and then you flip it, because the front part, the prefix, goes to the end. Alright, so you split it apart and you take that prefix and put it all the way to the end of the sentence, or if it's a question. Okay, that's the rule. Alright. This is what it looks like if we're thinking of an equation. So we have our subject, our verb, other stuff, and the prefix all the way at the end. And this is in a sentence, okay? If it was a question, the verb, subject, other stuff, prefix, question mark. We've covered inverted word order for formation of questions in a previous video. This is just showing you that in separable prefix verbs, the same thing happens. We flip the verb and the subject, but the prefix is still at the end, okay? That's what you have to remember. Now, let's take our verb komme, to arrive, and show you how this works. So, if we have the sentence, the train is arriving at 2 o'clock, and we want to say that in Dutch, this has one of those separable prefix verbs, komme. So, we would take our subject, der Trein, split the verb apart, put the prefix to the end, conjugate our verb for the subject, which in this case, komt, 2 Uhr. Notice the verb is here in the second position, and our prefix is all the way at the end. Der Trein kommt 2 Uhr. Der Trein kommt 2 Uhr. So the train is arriving at 2 o'clock. Okay. Now, if we were to take this exact same sentence, let's turn it into a question. We only have to do one thing. Is the train arriving at 2 o'clock? Just flip our verb and our subject. Kommt der Train 2 Uhr. Notice though our prefix is still at the end of in this case, the question. That doesn't move. Kommt der Train 2 Uhr. Is the train arriving at 2 o'clock? Okay. Now, there are some things we have to remember when dealing with separable prefix verbs. First, as we covered in video 20 in our series, whenever we're using modals, modal verbs, modal auxiliaries, our verb is forced to the end of the sentence, and when you watched that video, I told you very clearly that this rule never gets broken. Well, it's the same applies with separable prefix verb. The only thing that's different is, now when we're using a separable prefix verb, if there is a modal, the verb does not split apart. Okay? The modal goes where it should go, the whole verb goes all the way to the end of the sentence. Just like normal modal rules, okay? That same sentence, the train is arriving at 2 o'clock, this time we're saying the train should or is supposed to arrive at 2 o'clock. We have our modal soll, which we covered earlier, and look, our whole verb, prefix and all, is at the end. Der Train soll 2 Uhr ankommen. Der Train soll 2 Uhr ankommen. Train is supposed to arrive at 2 o'clock, okay? This also happens in the future tense, which we covered in video 23. Remember that when we were doing future, we said it's a form of wäre, verb at the end. In forming future tense sentences, Same thing applies. If we were to take that same sentence and put it in the future tense, the train will arrive at 2 o'clock. We have our form of wäre. Notice our separable prefix verb is all together at the end. Der Train wird 2 Uhr ankommen. Der Train wird 2 Uhr ankommen. Okay? So, remember, if when you're dealing with a modal or future tense, the whole verb goes to the end. Otherwise, split it apart and flip it. Okay? Now, the list of separable prefix verbs in Dutch is quite long. I chose a couple just to share with you in this video today. In any dictionary, if you bought one of the dictionaries, when you see them in the dictionary, they'll usually have a little split or a slash or a dash in between showing you that this is a separable prefix verb. Okay? So, here's our first one. And some of these we've already seen before in previous videos. Have. To have on or to wear. Remember, you have to conjugate have correctly, and that's an irregular verb. Daarheen gehe. To go there. So motion going somewhere. Herkomen. To come here. Einkaufen. To shop or to go shopping. Mitbringen. To bring with or to bring along. Ausgeben. To spend. Now you have to remember that when dealing with these, I'm just telling you the rules. Words like have and gave, we know are irregulars, so you got to be careful. Remember how to conjugate them. Okay? Here's some more. Mitkommen. To come along or to come with. Einladen. To invite. The one we were working with earlier. Aankomen. To arrive. Ausmachen. To decide or to plan for something. Aanvangen. To start. Aufpassen. To pay attention. Alright, so again, that was just a short list. There are many more. Alright? Now, let's practice. Glibing. So, I've given you the information here. You need to take what I've given you and make a sentence in the present tense using these verbs correctly. Now, I'll put it on, pause the video, write out your answer, and then hit play, and then you'll see the correct answer. So I have der Bill, our verb is mitkommen, and zu reparty. So, what would we do? You should get der Bill kommt zu reparty mit. Der Bill kommt zu reparty mit. Bill is coming along to the party, or coming with to the party. Verb splits and flips, mit is at the end, that's our prefix. Here's your next one. Ich habe ein neues Hemd. We want to say I am wearing or I have on a new shirt. Ich habe ein neues Hemd. Do it correctly. You would get ich hab ein neues Hemd an. Ich hab ein neues Hemd an. Okay? Here's another one. Now this time notice I have a question mark, so we want to form a question. Our verb is einladen du der Sam zum Dankfest. So, are you inviting Sam to Thanksgiving? Make it in a question. You should have gotten Lodst du der Sam zum Dankfest ein? Lodst du der Sam zum Dankfest ein? It's a question. That doesn't matter though. Verb comes first this time. Our prefix is still at the end. I. Alright? That's our short video on separable prefix verbs. Again, there are many more than what are covered in this video, but knowing the rules that I went over today, doesn't matter what separable prefix verb you come along with a dictionary or that someone is using that you hear or see, now you know how they work, because they all work the same. Alright? Just remember, the only two times they don't split and flip are with modals and future tense. Otherwise, the prefix is always at the end. Okay? So, that's it for this one. Bis die nächste Video. Mach's gut und schwätz Deutsch.